Hello everyone. Today we are doing lesson 23. I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. The idea for today contains the only way out of fear that will ever succeed. Nothing else will work. Everything else is meaningless. But this way cannot fail. Every thought you have makes up some segment of the world you see. It is with your thoughts, then, that we must work, if your perception of the world is to be changed. Interjecting. So, what it's stating here, folks, is what Alex and I have been talking about throughout all of these lessons, that it's your thoughts in your head that is creating the world around you. Some portion of your thoughts are creating every single thing that's around you. Whether it be this book I'm holding in my lap, the bookmarker, this dress I'm wearing, my glasses, cup to drink from, whatever it is, your mind projects those thoughts of those items out there and creates them. The things that you're perceiving with whatever situation's happening around you, also you project those things out by what it is you think and believe to be true. So that's what it's telling you right there. And he's telling you specifically that that is what we have to work on, is your way of thinking and of seeing the world. And it's only in this way that you'll be able to heal. And it cannot fail if you have just the tiniest bit of willingness to actually look.
By the way, I was shown a great example of this while I was driving to work today.
Okay.
It happened twice in a row, where I was in the right lane doing 70 in a 65, and here in the Bay Area, 70 in a 65, you're going pretty slow. So I'm in the far right lane. And there was a couple instances where there was a car that was merging onto the freeway. And it just worked out in a way where it wasn't real easy for me to move over, so I maintained where I was at in my lane. The car was coming in behind me, but just barely behind me. And so I had this thought in my head that person, that driver, was irritated at me for being in their way. And I realized later on that I projected that onto that driver without having any idea or understanding of what that driver was actually thinking or feeling. And so I literally created my environment, my world, based on the information that I had, but it was complete projection. There was almost no substantial basis to substantiate what I was thinking. However, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And so Holy Spirit showed that to me twice as I was going to work. That happened 2 times with 2 vehicles. And I was reminded of the lesson. And I thought, isn't that interesting?
Of the attack thoughts?
Well, this goes with yesterday's lesson as well. Everything
what
goes
I see
together.
is a form of vengeance.
What I see is a form of vengeance. Right.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were recognizing it as it came up, to be able to evaluate it right then and there. We get asked a lot how it is that we are able to process these things, right? Back before Christmas, I had been invited to something when we had gone to this church. We were kind of trying out this church. And I had gotten asked to come to like a woman's meeting retreat type thing for a couple of hours. And I had to really think about it. It's like I was picking up these fears of rejection and all kinds of things from the person asking. And when I stated, I need to think about it, it was because of what I was being overwhelmed with. And in that instant, I really did start looking at it, what I was experiencing, what I was feeling. And those kinds of things are what it is that I have to do. As soon as it comes up, I have to look at it right then and there. Very seldom do I get the opportunity to set it off to the side and deal with it later. When it comes up, he wants me to look at it instantly, and that's what I have to do. Otherwise, it drives me nuts. And it eats at me and eats at me and eats at me. And I ended up saying yes, but I had to look at what I was experiencing, what was my emotions and what was their emotions. And in that same way, Alex, you had a similar incident. I think it was like the next weekend at that church where someone had said something and you had to get up and walk out and take a walk around the block to get your equilibrium back, I guess, and look at it and process what you were experiencing.
Yeah, well, that's just part of my process of what I've learned to do if I get upset. And someone had reprimanded me very loudly during church service when I asked a simple question. Someone had gotten up to speak, and I asked them if they were doing the workbook or the text. And they said, "Hey, let her talk." And that's a different.
Oh yeah, that's right after they had talked about having an open dialogue and had a Q&A, question answer type thing going back and forth where we were kind of discussing the material that the previous speaker had been talking about.
Right. So the previous speaker had talked about having an open dialogue, and so I asked a question, are you doing the text or the workbook? And someone had hollered out, "Hey, let her speak." And so I found that very upsetting.
Yeah, they did it in a very antagonistic, nasty, angry way.
Yeah.
Very, very angry, very volatile. Yeah, it really surprised everyone there because they had never seen that person react that way before. And it was one of those things where it was all I could do to maintain my own seat because it upset me as well that someone had the audacity to turn around and speak to anyone else like that, let alone my husband, for simply asking them a question for clarifying what it was that they were studying in regards to the course. Was it the text or the workbook or the manual for teachers? There's 3 sections in this book. They had been studying a portion of it for almost an entire year. And I believe they said that they had been doing the text.
Yeah, it was the text.
You want to start?
Yeah, second paragraph 2.
Yes.
Lesson 23. If the cause of the world you see is attack thoughts, you must learn that it is these thoughts which you do not want. There is no point in lamenting the world. Now, I had to look up the word lamenting, and dictionary.com says it is to feel or express sorrow or regret for. So there's no point in feeling sorrow or regret for the world, would be another way to say that. There is no point in trying to change the world. It is incapable of change because it is merely an effect. but there is indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause. The effect will change automatically. And we can use that example in the church service where that guy had hollered out at me. This was at the Community Miracle Church, by the way, Community Miracle Center in San Francisco. And, one might look at that as an attack, but if you switch your thinking, you can see how it was simply him misperceiving basically a should or a shouldn't. And this is kind of typical for church environments to believe that, when somebody gets up and talks, there shouldn't be anyone else talking, that it should just be a monologue.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the previous speaker had been talking about having a dialogue, and a couple, for the past previous services that we had been there, it had been mentioned that a course of love had been talking about having a dialogue. And so this person simply was misperceiving of how somebody should or shouldn't interact, regardless of whether they were talking about having a dialogue. It still was not in his mind to have a dialogue with a speaker that would get up and speak. And so it was a very knee-jerk reaction to lash out like that and say, hey, let her speak, without really thinking about it. And so if somebody shifts their perception of that, there's two ways to look at this. I could look at it as I'm being attacked by this mean, angry person, or I could look at it as this person is simply misperceiving his brothers in the world and what should or shouldn't be happening, and came up with the idea that something has gone wrong and someone is being unfairly treated.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can look at him in another light of this person is simply misperceiving.
Yeah.
Hence, in the last two sentences, but there is indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause. The effect will change automatically.
Exactly. Now, here's something else that I want to bring to your attention. Here in the course, it tells us point blank that we cannot change the world. All we can do is change our minds about the world. And when we go within and look at all of the crap that we've experienced in our lives, and all the things that we've been taught to believe in and put our faith and trust into as being true, the judgments, the opinions, all of that junk. When we change our minds about those things, the way we view the world around us changes. The way we view ourselves change. The way we start interacting with people changes. And in that way, the entire world gets changed. We're not changing the world. We're simply changing the way we look at the world.
Right. We're changing our minds about the world.
Exactly. There's a line in this course. I think it's like lesson 138 or something like that, or 132, where it talks about the world not being real.
I believe that's lesson 132.
Yeah. And Alex and I have gone round and round and round about that particular lesson. I've said we don't always see eye to eye. Now, when I heard that, it really gave me an icky feeling inside, like something wasn't right with it. And the more I sat there going off the deep end with Holy Spirit about it, finally he came through to me and pointed it to me in that way, that it isn't that the world isn't real, it's that the way you perceive it is the illusion. And what I took that to mean and have taken that to mean is that this world is very, very real. It's simply the way I've been taught to perceive it and experience it is the illusion, is the lie. Because everything I've been taught is to superimpose a judgment over top of it. An expectation that it's going to be this or it's going to be that, but it can't be both. And I'm finding that that simply isn't true. It can be both. In a lot of different ways, there are two sides to everything.
By the way, the lesson that you're talking about, lesson 132, is I loose the world from all I thought it was.
Yeah.
And in that lesson, it actually says there is no world 5 times.
I know. And that's what I was having issues with. Because it brought to mind for me that this entire world is going to go poof and be gone, disappeared. I'd be like, well, what the hell? Now what the hell am I supposed to do? If I don't exist, my husband doesn't exist. He was just an illusion all along. And that really put me in a hell of a tailspin. Because I was like, no, that doesn't feel right to me. If I exist and he exists, then there's no effing way that he is going to just go puff disappear because I made him up in my mind. That simply isn't true.
That's right. That's not true. Because in truth, I do exist.
Exactly.
And you do exist.
So
now, I might not exist as a body. I have a body, but that this body is not necessarily me any more than my car is me while I'm driving it.
Exactly. Now, and these are the kinds of concepts that have been put forth. And as we were doing the lessons and whatnot that first year, we were hearing all kinds of different crap from different teachers about what they thought it meant and what they thought it was supposed to be saying to us. And telling us that we just needed to forget everything else we think and believe and just listen to them. That didn't work for me. It never has.
Yeah.
It has never worked for me.
Yeah, I think lesson 132 is probably one of the most difficult lessons in the course for most students.
Yeah, because of it.
It's pretty difficult to take in the concept, the idea that there is no world.
Yeah. And I think that's why Holy Spirit broke it down for me like that in truth, the world is real, but the way I perceive it is the illusion. Because the world is a living, breathing entity thing, so it exists. I can't take that away from it.
But just keep in mind that science has proven that the physical universe is a finite thing. Science...
yes, I don't trust science.
You don't trust science?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Remember, it's like that whole thing with fractions that we were talking about. The idea and thought and concepts of fractions is man-made, which is part of the reason why I can't freaking comprehend the damn things.
Okay. All right. Well, that's your belief that, and that's the thing. Ultimately,
it's a belief.
Each have to come to our own belief and understanding about what the world is, who and what we are, who and what God is, and what this course is saying to us.
Exactly. All of it is about looking at what it is we do believe, what it is we are putting our faith and trust into. I've said many times, I'm dyslexic. I have a very difficult time with certain things. And fractions in them, I've never been able to comprehend them. Music, can't read it. I can sing unbelievably. I can look at a piece of sheet music and see how those little squiggly lines go like this and figure out by reading the words or whatever of the music what the tempo, what the beat, and how it's supposed to sound. But I couldn't tell you what those notes are. They have absolutely no meaning to me other than to show just like a wavelength of movement to the words. That's how they transmit to me. But I couldn't tell you what the notes were or any of that stuff. And what I found out is part of the reason is because it's all done in fractions. And that's the kicker. Yeah, me and fractions don't get along.
Yeah, if I even mention fractions,
oh, my head starts hurting.
Her head starts hurting. I don't even have to. All I have to do is start to try. Like, I don't even have to say anything. She just has to realize I'm about to say anything, and she gets a headache and can't hear anything I'm about to say.
Yeah.
So her head hurts before I even say anything.
Remember, I can tell a person's intent, and when I can feel your intent to lecture.
To teach.
No, it's lecture.
No, it's to teach. Because fractions can be learned in a very simple way unless we believe that we can't learn something, unless we believe something. And that's what this course is all about, to understand that.
Yeah, but I never believed that I couldn't learn it until it was proven to me that I couldn't.
Well, then explain why it is that all of a sudden your head hurts when I'm about to say something.
It's because I'm trying to comprehend what you're saying.
But I haven't said anything yet.
No. No, dear. You usually start off trying to say something, trying to explain something, and you're like, okay, well, let me try it this way.
And then you're like, oh, no, I can't hear it.
No, because I've already been trying to understand. Anyway, let's continue on, okay?
Okay.
See, folks, I told you, we don't always get along.
Yeah,
agree.
This is probably one of the biggest areas that we do have trouble with in our relationship, because for me, fractions is very simple. I mean, you take a pie, you cut it in half, and you take out 1/2 of the pie, you have 1/2, and you start from the basic simplicity, and you use real world objects, and you can use a pie. I mean, actually take a pie and a knife and start cutting it in slices.
Well, actually, you know what? We did figure out that I have a very simplistic understanding of fractions with the even numbers. The even numbers. When it gets into the odds, I can't understand it. It like literally makes it so I just shut down. My brain shuts down.
1 is an even number, and so if you have 1/2 of a...
1 is an odd number.
That's what I'm sorry. 1 is an odd number. So if you have 1/2 of a pie, that's an odd number. So you have half a pie. 1/2, 1/2.
And this is what I have to deal with. He immediately wants to start trying to teach it to me.
Right. It's just for me, it's very basic, and you know, I can't wrap my mind,
because he thinks everyone has to think like him, I guess.
I just can't understand how somebody can't understand the concept of taking something and cutting it in half and having 1/2. Doesn't make sense to me.
And it doesn't need to. You just need to accept it. I love you.
I love you too.
And you can cut all that out if you want.
Or I can leave it.
Okay, we're going to move on to paragraph 3. The world you see is a vengeful world, and everything in it is a symbol of vengeance. Each of your perceptions of external reality is a pictorial representation of your own attack thoughts. One can well ask if this can be called seeing. Is not fantasy a better word for such a process, and hallucination a more appropriate term for the result? So, in this paragraph, it's literally telling you that what you are putting out there is a bunch of pictures of what you're believing to be true. Mental pictures of what you believe you're perceiving based off of your own judgments and opinions of what you've been taught to believe. And if you really think about what it is that you are doing in those moments, he's telling you, you know, it's more like you are just living in a fantasy world in your head in that moment. And when you are projecting it out like that, you might as well tell yourself, hey, I'm just hallucinating and I'm not seeing anything correctly. This is just an illusion in front of me. You're hallucinating. When you start having those attack thoughts come into your head, you are living in a fantasy world and hallucinating.
And by the way, whenever we are experiencing fear, we are experiencing attack thoughts.
Yes. Fear, hurt, anger, shame, guilt, all of those are attack thoughts, believe it or not. Because a lot of times those things are attack thoughts against yourself.
Right. So we believe that we live in a world that is trying to kill us. You know, Albert Einstein has a very famous quote, something along the lines of, ultimately we have to come to a decision on how we see the world. Do we see the world as a friendly place or as a place that is trying to kill us? And ACIM is teaching us that the world is a friendly place.
And we need to stop looking at it as if it's trying to kill us.
Exactly.
Your turn. 4.
You see the world that you have made, but you do not see yourself as the image maker. You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. This is what salvation means. For where is the world you see when its cause is gone? Vision already holds a replacement for everything you think you see now. Loveliness can light your images, and so transform them that you will love them, even though they were made of hate. For you will not be making them alone. So using that example of what happened in that church incident, the person that was talking to me may have had hate and anger in his heart. But again, that was simply a misperception. It was a misperception of who he was and who his brothers are and how they should or should not interact with each other. And he was projecting onto the speaker his own thoughts as if I was speaking to him. And so when we see a person as only simply misperceiving, we can recognize that the way that we are being talked to and treated is simply because we are being misperceived by our brothers. And we can stop that chain of misperception by seeing them as love and light, who is simply misperceiving who and what they are.
Yeah, as I've been doing this course, my changes in perceptions have been very, very profound in many ways. Now, something a lot of the course teachers in the community have this habit of doing is saying, if you're seeing it, you need to own it. That's yours.
Oh, you mean if you spot it, you got it?
Yeah, if you spot it, you got it. And here's the kicker. Holy Spirit, as I said, it took 3 months before the light dawned in my head. And it's because at that 3-month mark, what I was looking at and working on in my mind was the bullshit I went through when I was 10 months old with my grandmother, with her force feeding me, with her kicking me across the room when I asked to be picked up and cuddled and loved on like she was doing to my infant brother that had just been born. And instead, all I kept getting was violence from her. Hatred, anger, vitriol. And that had taught me to believe that I had done something wrong. And when I, at 10 months old, believed that of myself, that, I must deserve this, I had to go back and look at all those things. And when he was showing me all of those things that I had been dealing with, he was showing me that I was responsible for taking on that judgment of hers, that I was the cause of all her miseries, that I took on the belief that I deserve to be treated that way. Now, the other thing that he showed me, because I really wanted to understand why the hell it all happened in the first place. What was I not seeing here? And then he showed me that she was projecting out onto me what she believed about herself. Everything that she had been taught to believe, she was projecting out on me in that moment. And because of that, it showed me the truth of not only what I had been doing, but what she had been doing. And then it also showed me the truth of what all my brothers in the world are doing. That when they are handing out those judgments and opinions, they are projecting out onto the world what they believe about themselves. And the first time I had tried to bring that to the attention of those around me, and when they would judge me in some way, I'd be like, no, I'm sorry, that's what you believe about yourself. You're simply judging, and that's what you're doing here. And they're like, well, you spotted it, you got it, telling me I was the one judging. I was like, that's not true. And that is one of the first things Holy Spirit was showing me, was the act of projection and the act of responsibility I needed to take for the things I was choosing to believe in as true, for the thoughts that went through my own head. And that is what that was saying, is when we can hand those things over, he has a replacement for everything. And everything that we are projecting out, believing to be true, placing our love on, is actually all the shit we hate.
What do you mean by that?
The things that we are taught growing up, this is love, to accept these judgments and opinions from these people, those are forms of love. And we are taught to seek them out, and in truth, we absolutely hate those judgments. We hate getting them because they're painful and they hurt. So we are being taught to love what we hate. We continuously seek out those judgments and opinions from all the people around us, even though we hate how we feel when we get them. Think about that.
Yeah, we are taught from a very young age
from the cradle
to judge and be judged.
Yes. Yeah. To judge and be judged. And that's what it's talking about. You know?
I think Jesus says something along the lines of, do not judge.
No,
least... Go ahead.
It's judge not, lest ye be judged.
That's right, yeah.
And so many Christians can't seem to grasp that particular concept. But that's okay. We all have our own battles to fight.
We'll get there eventually.
Very true. Moving on?
I hope so.
Okay. 5. The idea for today introduces the thought that you are not trapped in the world you see, because its cause can be changed. This change requires first that the cause be identified and then let go, so that it can be replaced. The first 2 steps in this process require your cooperation. The final one does not. Your images have already been replaced. By taking the first 2 steps, you will see that this is so. And folks, the first two steps are to look at what's coming up when it comes up with Holy Spirit. Go within and look at it with Him. Then the second step is to ask Him, what is it I'm misperceiving? And wait for the answer.
Anytime we have a fearful thought or an angry thought, we are misperceiving. And so my process has been basically, whenever I have a thought that hurts,
fear, game,
right,
pain,
all those thoughts hurt. Whenever I have a thought that hurts, then I come to the understanding that I must be misperceiving. And so the second step is to ask for a correction in perception. And so those are the first two steps. One, to recognize that we have a thought that is an untrue thought, and that's not true.
That's giving us conflict,
a false
inside.
Thought that gives us conflict. And the second step is to ask for the correction. And that because of free will. We have to ask for the correction. Otherwise, we're not going to get it. We're going to continue believing and seeing what we think we see. But when we can ask Holy Spirit for the correction and truly be willing to have that correction come to us, we can see the truth. And another way to look at that would be forgiveness. Forgiveness is seeing the truth. And not hold those judgments of our brothers and ourselves.
Yeah. And it's not just the painful, hurtful thoughts in that way, because all of our thoughts that we have coming up in our minds, the good ones, the bad ones, it's recognizing that they're all a judgment. It's the meaning that we've placed on everything.
I wouldn't call them good or bad thoughts. I'd call them true or false thoughts.
Well, no, good or bad would be, oh, that person's pretty. In your mind, it might be a good thought, but it's still a judgment.
Yes, it is.
And that's why I'm saying, good or bad, it still needs to be brought to Him. Irregardless, all of our thoughts need to be brought to Him.
And ultimately, we need to release all judgments of the good and the bad.
Exactly. What this course is showing us to do is to bring forth all of our thoughts to Him and to let go of all of these things that we're believing, our core beliefs. And when I talk about core beliefs, I'm talking about the things that you believe define you, the things that you believe define the world around you.
Like, the world has good people and bad people.
Mm-hmm.
And in truth, all people are inherently good.
Or the belief that your government is here to protect you and to do good for you always. That's a core belief many people have. Then there's another core belief others have, that the government is always out to get them and is only wanting to hurt them and kill them.
Yeah, it's two sides of one coin.
It's exactly.
But both
their
of those
core beliefs.
Both of those sides of the coin have to do with giving up our own power when it comes to the government.
And in truth, any time that you are asking someone else for their opinion, asking someone else to judge you in some way, or accepting their judgments of you in any way, in those moments you are handing over your power.
Yeah.
Your right to be who you are.
That's right.
And that is something that all of us were taught to do, and we need to learn to stop doing. 6.
Besides using it throughout the day as the need arises, 5 practice periods are required in applying today's idea. As you look about you, repeat the idea slowly to yourself first, and then close your eyes and devote a minute to searching your mind for as many attack thoughts as occur to you. As each one as each one crosses your mind, say, I can escape the world I see by giving up attack thoughts about blank. And blank being whatever subject or thought you're having.
Yeah. So I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts about blank.
Hold each attack thought in mind as you say this, and then dismiss that thought and go on to the next. You want to read the next paragraph?
Yeah. In the practice periods, be sure to include both your thoughts of attacking and of being attacked. Their effects are exactly the same because they are exactly the same. You do not recognize this as yet, and you are asked at this time only to treat them as the same in today's practice periods. We are still at the stage of identifying the cause of the world you see. When you finally learn that thoughts of attack and of being attacked are not different, you will be ready to let the cause go. And that is exactly what Alex and I have been talking about, is recognizing that whether it feels like somebody's attacking you or you are attacking another with your words, your thoughts, they are exactly the same. When you are judging another or someone else is judging you, there's no difference. It's all the same. It's a judgment. It's a lie. And that's what he's trying to get us to recognize. A lot of these lessons might seem just completely outrageous and over the top. And you might have a lot of resistance to believing it and accepting it as being what it is. But you're not asked to believe it. You're not asked to accept it in this moment. You're simply asked to do it. Do the lessons as they are being stipulated to do. As you do them, they play in the back of your mind. And as you do them, seriously say, okay, Holy Spirit, I'm going to do these lessons and I want you here with me as I'm doing them. Show me what I'm misperceiving here. Show me the truth. Help me to get through these so I don't have to keep going through this hell I'm in. And each time he will be there with you. He will show you the truth of these things, that they are all the same and that you are doing all of the stuff that you're experiencing to yourself. And that has been the hardest thing for people to get into their head. Even Alex is having issues with that one, that he's doing it all to himself. Would you agree with that, dear?
Issues? That I'm doing it all to myself? What do you mean by that?
Like that post that you did when you were recognizing today that it was your beliefs and your expectations that was causing you your pain and suffering.
You know, I'm actually empowered when I realize that I do it to myself. Because
exactly.
As long as we blame somebody else for what we're thinking and what we're feeling, we really are giving up our power. And so it's actually empowering when I realize how I have done all this to myself. I've created my own hell with my own thoughts.
Exactly.
And this course is the release from that hell.
Yeah, it is. And as he said, it's very empowering. And when we recognize that we've done it all to ourselves, then we suddenly feel like we have this immense power and ability to change it.
That's right.
That, okay, I did this myself. I can change this shit. I am not going to continue with this. Let's go. Let's get down and dirty with this. I'm ready to get my hands dirty. If I got to roll in that muck, so be it. Let's go. I'm ready. And it's that determination, that willingness to go the steps needed to dive into it fully without any resistance that has allowed me to get to where I am today. It has allowed me to be healed of all my bodily diseases. It has allowed me to go from 275 pounds to 155 pounds and continue to be losing weight. It has allowed me to have inner peace, even in the face of my family being so vitriolic and nasty toward my husband and I. To still maintain my inner peace and truth, knowing I am absolutely correct in where I'm at and that I am on the right path for me. That kind of stuff is what I have been learning to stick to within myself, to not waver. There's no textbook lessons for today, folks. It's a weekend. So,
not that it made this recording any shorter than the others. Let's see, we are at
46 minutes.
46 minutes.
So, this is lesson 23. I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. Do the work, folks. Do it as it's saying, as it's stipulated. You don't have to believe it. You can actively resist it.
All Jesus is asking for is a little bit of willingness.
Yeah, that's all our Father's asking for, is willingness to
change the way we see.
Yeah.
A shift in perception.
Yeah. You're not giving up anything that you don't want to give up already, which is the pain and the suffering. You're not going to lose anything. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Hugs and love. Sabrina Reyenga, Alex Reyenga. Thank you for joining us. Namaste.